industry and a construction project is the ultimate team sport. The 2.0 process allows us to be really synchronized and really orchestrated in how work gets deployed on a job site.
It's a highly interactive, low-tech communications tool. The techniques of planning and execution are really the same as they've always been. We're simply packaging it in a much different way. We try to make things bright and colorful, easy to see, easy to read, easy to understand, and people thrive on that.
There's an orchestrated element of all of the trades working in harmony with one another is really powerful. That doesn't happen on jobs without some intentionality, and that intentionality is really at the center of the boards that are behind us and what the production system is about.
We focus on what the project needs to have happen. What's important for the project to get done? And then we set things in motion to support that.
CP 2.0 is really changing our industry, bringing back and requiring collaboration at the job site with the trades that are there that has been missing in the last several years. So it's bringing the human touch, the human interaction, and the problem solving back to where it always needs to be. It brings it to where the action is in a really efficient, highly orchestrated, predictable way.
We're going to bring people together to work on the boards together, so we've determined the best way to do that we should do this. This isn't about how Story believes the work should go. It's about us.
There's no substitute for a team getting around a table, talking to one another and planning and organizing their work together. And there's not a software system out there that permits that.
We ask our projects for every crew that's on the site to tell us exactly what they're going to do every day. And then at the end of the day, we evaluate, did we get that done or not? And if we didn't get it done, why not? We're seeing about 3 or 4% increase in our consistency over these first 3 years. So all we're looking for is 1 day's worth of work done out of every crew every day, and we want to get incrementally better. It never fails to amaze me when we get everything our men need and we give them a good, safe environment to work in. They will knock the socks off of what we expect. It's our job to put them in a good position to be able to be successful. It's been the best thing I think we've invested in my 25 years of Story.
Good day, everybody. My name is Pat Geary, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Story Construction. I'm going to spend a few minutes today talking to you about Construction Production 2.0, which is our planning and scheduling model that we use in all of our projects here at Story Construction. So what is Construction Production 2.0, or as we like to call it, CP 2.0? Well, it's a team-based project and task planning and execution model that's a highly effective low-tech communication process that's highly structured in its format to provide clear expectations for the participants that ultimately promote routine interactions between all the team members. What are we trying to accomplish by using CP 2.0 on all our projects? Well, several things. First, we're trying to accelerate the growth of the project leadership team members. Secondly, we're trying to improve the productivities for all the crews. Third, we're trying to make the work fun again. And finally, we're trying to provide good outcomes for all the people associated with Story Construction projects. Posted all throughout the CP 2.0 planning facility that you're currently seated in is the target. And the target defines the why, the how, and the what related to the system. The why is that Story believes in growing opportunities for our people and our partners who share our ideals through safe, high-quality performance. The how is the construction kata, which is an improvement routine, and the CP2MS, which is the board layout you see in front of you. And the what is daily crew production flow, which is defined by providing high-quality work assignments and high-quality work zones to each crew every day, which leads us to our production vision. And that vision states that every crew on every Story project will continuously execute its assigned work flawlessly to meet its daily production target without incident or defect. What were the system principles we used when we designed the CP 2.0 system? Well, there were several things. First, we wanted the components of the system to be designed in a way that promoted teamwork. We wanted the experience for all participants to be the same on all story projects. We wanted the process to incrementally increase the level of detail of planning and understanding of the work, while at the same time filtering bad information from getting to the work phase. We wanted the system to feel like something we were doing with you instead of something we're doing to you. And finally, and most importantly, we wanted all of the participants to have fun while getting the work done.
On future slides, we'll talk about how the system works and what's expected of the participants. But now we want to talk about the feel or the culture that the project should create. On our most successful 2.0 projects, we found that there's a developmental feel at the beginning of the project where we educate the participants, coach them up, evaluate how they're doing, that we have experiential learning through guided experimentation, and that we get incremental conformance to the requirements of the system. That leads to changes in our behavior, to where the participants are more accountable to one another, there's a selflessness to the team, there's confidence, they're anticipatory about the next things coming, enthusiastic and engaged. And ultimately we create a culture of respect, of trust, collaboration, and ultimately teamwork. And we create a situation where the projects are doing it the way we want to do it. So as a participant in the system, what are you expected to do? What are we asking you to do to contribute to a team environment? Well, first, you need to follow the requirements, the guidelines of the system, the things that we're going to talk about. Next, you need to attend and contribute with the phase pull production planning, or that's our overall scheduling on the project. Next, attend and contribute to flow diagram planning, which is the next level of detail that we'll discuss in future slides. To attend and contribute to the daily end of shift meetings that will take no longer than 15 minutes with a standard agenda. Attend and contribute to our weekly sticky note population meetings, which should happen on late on Wednesdays or early on Thursdays. Populate your daily work assignments for each of your crews each week. Attend and contribute to our weekly production team meeting, which should happen either late Thursday morning or early Thursday afternoon. And then coordinate with the other crews and share with offsite partners. The energy invested in the system will equal the results that we obtained, or as Matt Campbell said after the TCU game, if you love the process, eventually the process will love you back. So as discussed on the previous slide, we certainly have a lot of meetings with the 2.0 process. But we want those meetings to be effective, and we want to get people in and out of those meetings to be able to get back out to the work. So one of the ways we do that is we have meeting requirements, and we're going to review these requirements before each of our meetings. And they are to be on time, to be prepared, to turn off our phones, that one person will speak at a time, there'll be no side conversations, that we'll table small group topics for discussion until after the meeting. We want to be honest, be brief, and get to the point. If all of the participants take these requirements seriously, the meetings are highly effective, and we can get our conversations done quickly and done effectively. The next set of requirements we have are for our sticky notes. On the left side of the board, you'll see the individual daily crew assignment sticky notes, which have more information than those on the right side of the board for our phase pull production schedule. The sticky notes for the individual daily crew assignment should include 4 different distinct pieces of information: the task to be completed, the quantity of work to be completed that day, the area or location the work is to be completed, and the number of men that will be part of that crew completing that work. It is our observation that those crews that most completely fill out these sticky notes typically have the highest PPC percentage, or the most consistent work done each day. The sticky notes for the phase pull production schedule only require 2 pieces of information: the task to be completed and the duration for which it will take. The picture you're seeing now is the typical board layout for our CP 2.0 trailers that you'll find on all story construction job sites. The boards include all of the work that's to be completed on this project. The far right side of the board contains our phase pull production schedule, which is the overall construction schedule on the project. The far right side of that is the completion of the project. As we move left down the board all the way to the far left columns, that represents the work that's being completed this week. One of the great advantages of the CP 2.0 system is we have in one place all of the work that's supposed to be completed on the site, from what's happening today through the completion of the project. The color of the Post-it note is very important. Each crew will be assigned an individual color for the work for that crew on the entire project. So at any point in time, members of the crew or members of the supervisors can come in and look at the boards and look for their color. Whether it's work we're doing today or work we're doing in the future, it's a common color across the entire board. The CP 2.0 planning trailer will be open during normal business hours as when story personnel is on the site. This planning space is available to all the crews to come in and plan their work. We please ask that you refrain from bringing food into the planning trailer as we're trying to keep the space neat and tidy.
We now want to talk about levels of focus within the board layout. You think about the focus levels, it's kind of like a rock crushing quarry. Big boulders go in at the head of the quarry and continuously go through crushers and be refined down through the process to be a small rock at the end of the belts. Our boards are very much the same way. The first level of focus is the summary level phase pull production schedule. In that, Story drafts a proposal schedule, very summarized in its format, not a lot of detail to it. We bring our owners and our architects and the major subcontractors in, and we present that schedule to them and offer them the opportunity to provide feedback and input. The next level is our Focus 2 level, and that's a time in the project when the story personnel again takes the phase pull and adds more definition, adds more detail. We again then bring the major stakeholders together, which would include the leadership from our major subcontractors and some suppliers, could be the owner and the architect, our superintendent, and we again present our draft or our thinking around that and then offer that group the opportunity to provide feedback, suggest changes, and we incorporate that into the plan that then we're developing. The third level ranges from our flow diagram planning down to through our 2-week look-ahead schedule. And this is a time where our superintendents, our engineers, and the foremen on site start to develop the plan in more detail. We're breaking down the work into now daily crew chunks so that the crews know what they're doing each and every day. And the fourth level of focus is this week's production plan, which is really where the crew gets involved. And we've indicated the individual tasks the crew will complete each day, and we filtered it to make sure that the work can be done when we send the crews out in the work phase to be able to do that. We have seen through this process, and the graph below will show you that as we move from the right side of the board to the left, the size of the chunk of the particular information or the size of the chunk of the work decreases through time. We've also seen, as we move from the right side of the board to the left, the level of planning increases as we move through time. We've also seen the growth of the OAC, or the leadership team, spikes up significantly early because they're involved in a lot of that early planning, and then levels off as the project goes. But the neat thing is that we've seen the growth of the team as we go through and we break down the work in greater detail. We have our routine conversations about that work. We've seen the growth and the commitment of the team members to one another grow as we get closer to getting the work done each day. Ultimately, what we're trying to do with the board layout is systematically increase the level of detailed planning and decrease the size of the chunk of the work through a systematic process of interactions to where drafts are presented to the greater team. The team offers their counsel or feedback to those drafts. That counsel is incorporated, and we march down as we get closer and closer to the work with smaller and smaller pieces of work chunks to be completed with greater and greater detail. And then ultimately the commitment of the team members to one another has increased as we move down the boards as well. Over the next number of slides, I'm going to go through how the boards are populated, how routine communication interaction happens, and then what are the rhythms and the meetings that we're going to engage in, and then ultimately what's expected from each of the participants. This first slide is really kind of indicating what happens early in the project. Story, supervision, leadership fill out a draft phase pull production schedule with milestones and a few major delivery dates, and that is the starting block, or kind of the skeletal approach to how we believe the project should be completed. Project leadership team then continues its process by adding prerequisite activities and phase activities or the work activities to the draft phase pull production schedule, adding big chunks of work, multi-weeks, not real small activities, again to add a little bit of meat to the bone, but not provide an entire body of work. And then our charge is to bring in the designers, the owner, our major subs and suppliers, and offer this to them and explain what our thinking is. That discussion then will yield feedback from those stakeholders, and the board and the post-it notes will be massaged and changed to incorporate the feedback that we receive. The process of adding more detail to the phase pull production schedule happens again, in that the story leadership team will increase the number of activities, increase the number of prerequisite activities that's displayed on the board, breaking things down into smaller chunks and adding smaller chunks of work for additional trades. And again, we will bring in then the major stakeholders, which would be our project manager and superintendent, some engineers. It would include the project managers and superintendents and foremen from our trade contractors. And again, we would present to them the draft schedule we've created. We would then seek their feedback, seek their input, have them tell us about how they believe their work should go, and ultimately we will massage the board and change it in a way that incorporates the feedback we received to make sure the plan that we're creating is one that we can all be happy with and all be assured can be completed when we need to. So now that we've completed the phase pull production schedule, we've got that fully populated, we now move on to the next level of planning. If you look back at the phase pull production schedule, you'll see the little targets that represent project milestones or phase stones. And what those represent are the completion of major portions of the project. It could be completion of the superstructure. It could be the building enclosure. It could be completion of the finishes. And the milestone target represents the accumulation of all of that work. And we're going to start to then break that work down into smaller chunks. We're going to define the sequence of those chunks, and we're going to give everybody an illustration of how we want to complete the work. And so let's assume that we're going to do building enclosure. We would take the milestone for that. You can see that move across, and then we would create a picture that would break the work up into chunks. We would then order those chunks of work. Then we would list below that the steps that it was required to complete all of the work within one of those chunks. We then lay those steps out over the course of the subsequent weeks, trying to break the work down by trade that constitutes a week's worth of work for that trade. And we would continue to do that throughout the course of the project for each of the major milestones, creating a different graphic that indicates how we're going to do that piece of work until we get ultimately to the completion of the project. So it isn't uncommon for us to complete 12 to 14 to 16 of these types of diagrams. The way we complete the diagrams is very similar to the phase pull production schedule, in that the story personnel will draft them, we'll color them up, and then we'll bring together all of the participants on the project that are affected by that flow diagram, all of the trades that have work within that milestone. And we will present to them how we believe the project should be completed based on the diagram in front of them, and then we'll seek their input, having them give us their expertise and their knowledge and understanding of the work, and working together to make sure we create and modify the flow diagram in a way that best suits the needs of the work and the needs of the participants, and then ultimately we'll execute the work based on that flow diagram. The next step in the process is to populate the 2-week look-ahead production schedule. This is the first opportunity that each of the crews have, is to populate the work into individual daily tasks. The source of that information comes from our workflow production plans. As you remember, those plans sequenced the work and broke it down into week chunks. We're going to take that week chunk of work and we're going to populate it into individual tasks for each crew. So post-it notes will be populated each day. Those post-it notes will have 4 distinct pieces of information to include the description of work to be completed, how much of that work will be done that day, where the work will be done that day, and how many people will be on that crew. So as you can see, each of the crews populates their work for that particular week. At the same time, they're populating the make certain tasks. Now, the make certain tasks are supporting kinds of activities that are necessary for work to be completed in the field. It could be getting an inspection done, getting testing agencies on the site, ordering miscellaneous materials, but it's kind of the supporting types of activities that are necessary so the crews can complete their work when they go out into the field. It is our intention for all of the foremen on the site to put all of these tasks on the make certain board, and those will ultimately get reviewed every day to make sure things are being completed as necessary for the work to be able to proceed without interruption or disruption once we get the crews into the field. On Monday morning, the story personnel need to update the boards. One of the activities they need to complete is to take the post-it notes from the week 2 look-ahead production schedule and move those to week 1. They will also then confirm any make certain tasks that had been completed previously. And then we ask the crews to come in either late Wednesday afternoon or early Thursday morning to populate the week 2 look-ahead production schedule once again. Additional make certain tasks will be added to the board as necessary to support that work. And ultimately, we want the board to be fully populated prior to the weekly team production meeting that will happen either late Thursday morning or early Thursday afternoon. On Thursdays, we have our weekly team production planning meeting, which is facilitated by the story personnel, and all of the superintendents and foremen from each of the trades that are on site or soon to be on site should attend that meeting. The board should look as you see it, where the week 1 and week 2 look-ahead production schedules have been populated. The main purpose of the meeting is to discuss and coordinate next week's work to make sure that we can move it from a schedule to a plan. And the way we do that is we confirm that the work actually can be completed if we send our crews out into the field to do that. And that's how we use the can filter. During the meeting, each of the crews will get up and present their work to the balance of the foremen. At the end of their presentation, we'll ask them, can that work be completed? If the answer is yes, the work is passed from the week 1 look-ahead production schedule to next week's work plan. You can see that sometimes the order of the post notes might be changed if the final coordination is done. Each crew gets up and does the same thing, as we successfully confirm that work can be completed, that work is moved to the production plan. Occasionally, we'll find that a make certain task hasn't been completed, and that work can't move past the can filter and will stay as a schedule and not the plan. It's then important that the project team address that make certain task so that work can be cleared of the can filter and move into next week's plan. But until that make certain is cleared, it remains a schedule and not a plan. On Monday morning, again, the project team will update the board and move week 2 to week 1. Then as we move to late on Wednesday or early on Thursday, new work is populated as new crews enter the site. New make certain should be added to the board, and we're set to go for our next Thursday's meeting. The work of the Monday morning board updating process continues with the story staff moving next week's production plan to this week's production plan for all the work that passed the can filter the previous Thursday. This is how the board should look about noon on Monday. At the end of the day on Monday, we have all of the foremen for the trades that are working on site that day come into the trailer for our end of shift meeting. That meeting should be no longer than 15 minutes in length and should start 30 minutes before the end of the shift that day. We're going to ask each foreman in that meeting 5 basic questions, and it should be the same questions every day. Did you have any safety issues? What was your goal for the day, and did you meet that goal? And if you did not, what was the reason that you didn't meet it? And we have 10 standard reasons for you to choose from. What's your goal for tomorrow? Do you have any shared resources with the other trades, and do you have any deliveries? So throughout the course of the week, we ask these questions, and for those operations that successfully completed their task as planned, they get a check. And for those operations that didn't get their work done successfully, they get an X, and then we simply ask for the reason that they didn't get it done. In this case, it was weather for both of the crews on the site this day, and all of the other days they got their work completed as scheduled. At the end of the week, we then calculate what we call a PPC percentage, or a plan percent complete. How consistent and how predictable were we able to get work done as planned? In this case, we got 80% of the work done for the first crew and 75% of the work done for the second crew.
Everybody works as a team. You get everybody's input, so you get multiple conversations that happen in a certain amount of time, and it just multiplies out very quickly how many people you get to talk to, how much information is shared. It works well.
Really holds people accountable to what's going on, and it helps people with everybody sitting in the room and knowing what someone else is working on. They can say, hey, I've got to get something done to let you do your work, or vice versa, and it got people talking. I mean, it takes no more than a couple minutes to see what's happening with a project.
We had this thing down to the activities, minute by minute almost, to make this thing successful. They brought in this scheduling platform that they had. It worked fantastic.
That really fits them in terms of the type of company they are, and very professional, very innovative, and very creative, and they've been a very helpful construction company.
One of the main purposes of the CP 2.0 process is to create a system by which we create committed teams. How do we get people from different companies to come together to rally to figure out the best way to do this project together that betters the project, betters the individuals, and betters the companies they work for? So we've created a system that has routine interactions, that has a systematic way for us to talk about the work that puts us in the best position to succeed as a team. We've created focus levels that define who should participate at different times, how they should participate, and when. We have a series of meetings, and I'm sure your mind is swimming with all the meetings I talked about. But these meetings create systematic, routine interactions where drafts are presented in many cases, input is allowed, then we allow people to get up and present their works for the next weeks, and we confirm that work can be done, and then we monitor the work through our end of shift meetings. But we want participation from the team members to make sure we're all committed to what we're doing. And finally, we want an environment that allows people to interact and mature quickly. If items don't go as planned, and that will happen, we're not looking to place blame. The environment should be a safe place to be, but what we want to do when things don't go well is we want to understand why it didn't happen, and then ultimately put things in place going forward that prevent them from happening again. In the last 25 minutes, we've certainly presented to you an awful lot of information about Construction Production 2.0. We really don't believe that you can remember it all, and that's okay. Your site supervisor will be in shortly to talk to you in more detail about specific things related to the system. We'll talk to you about how you should participate. We'll talk to you about when meetings happen and what's expected of you at those meetings. What I would ask for you is just start with an open mind. Time and time again, we've seen people start, put some effort into it, and over the course of the first 2 or 3 weeks, good things start to happen. But we have to invest energy in something if we want it to get the positive results we know that can happen. We want to welcome you to the Story team. We want to welcome you to the project, and we look forward to working with you not only today, but for many years to come.